What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another international rundown. Did you know some countries out there are sketchier than a gas station sushi counter or your uncle's third marriage? Yeah. Hard to believe, but here we are. The world can be a rough place. You could land pretty much anywhere and end up in a situation. The thing is, some countries take dangerous and turn it up to 11, and depending on where you're from, that danger level can shift even more. If you think the whole planet loves America and Americans, my friend, you have lived a sheltered life, and honestly, congrats on getting out and finding this video. But the truth is, some places are dangerous for everybody, and especially for Americans. That's exactly why the U.S. Department of State, not the State Department, like some people call it, wait, actually that's the same thing, never mind, puts out something called the Travel Advisory. It's updated regularly, and it ranks how risky a country is for American travelers. Think of it like a mood ring for danger. It goes from level 1, which is, exercise normal precautions, all the way up to level 4, which basically means, do not go here, seriously, we mean it. So today we're counting down 10 level 4 countries and breaking down exactly why you should leave them off your vacation itinerary. Let's get into it. Number 10, Syria. Don't go to Syria unless you happen to be bulletproof. That might be the single most useful travel tip you'll get all year. Syria has been stuck in a civil war for almost a decade now, and here's the kicker, it's not just two sides duking it out. There are multiple factions all fighting each other at once, which means if bullets start flying, you genuinely won't know who's shooting or why. Picture browsing real estate listings for a cozy, partially collapsed townhouse and suddenly gunfire breaks out. You'd have zero idea which faction to blame. The official warning is blunt, no part of the country is safe from violence. Kidnappings by armed groups, arbitrary arrests, chemical weapons use, shelling, and airstrikes all pose a serious risk of death or injury. On top of that, hospitals, schools, and basic utilities have been wrecked, making everyday survival even harder for anyone still there. Bottom line, skip Syria entirely. Number 9, Burkina Faso. First, let me clarify, I'm not making this country up. Burkina Faso is a real West African nation sitting between Mali and Ghana, home to roughly 20 million people, and unfortunately it's grown increasingly hostile toward Westerners, Americans included. There's no strong reason to relocate here unless you're really into unpaved roads, because they've got plenty. If you're still curious, here's what the advisory says. Terrorist groups are actively plotting attacks, and they can strike with little to no warning. And it's not warning like a heads-up text, it's, surprise, an explosion just happened, no warning. Targets have included hotels, restaurants, police stations, customs checkpoints, mining areas, places of worship, military installations, and schools. Basically nowhere is guaranteed safe. Kidnapping and hostage situations remain a nationwide threat, and the government has kept parts of the country under a state of emergency for extended stretches. Number 8, South Sudan. South Sudan is a landlocked nation in East-Central Africa with a population around 12 million. I actually covered its main airport once in a Worst Airports video. The restroom situation there is a literal tent over a trench, relocated every so often. No plumbing, no real infrastructure. Someone who grew up there once told me the local saying is basically, water's for drinking, not for anything else. Fair enough. According to the advisory, violent crime. Carjackings, shootings, armed robbery, kidnapping, happens constantly across the country. Foreign women in particular have reported serious safety incidents. Armed conflict continues in various regions between political and ethnic factions, and weapons are widely available among the population. Even disputes over cattle can spiral into violence. Number 7, Yemen. Yemen hasn't exactly been a tourism darling in a very long time. It sits on the Arabian Peninsula, bordered by Oman, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf of Aden, a region that's dealt with conflict going back centuries, well before modern politics got involved. The most recent uprising kicked off around 2011, fueled by unemployment, economic collapse, corruption, and anger over a plan to let the ruling family hand the presidency down like an inheritance rather than hold real elections. People were not fans of that plan. Things escalated fast, including a moment where police snipers opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing dozens. Number 6, Venezuela. The US and Venezuela have not exactly been exchanging holiday cards lately. A while back, the State Department pulled all embassy staff out of Caracas entirely, cutting off both routine and emergency consular services. Per the advisory, violent crime, homicide, armed robbery, kidnapping, carjacking, is extremely common. Political protests pop up frequently and with little notice, and they tend to draw a heavy security response involving tear gas, pepper spray, water cannons, and rubber bullets, which can spiral into looting or vandalism. Shortages of food, electricity, water, and medicine are widespread across the country, and health officials have flagged the collapsing medical system as a major risk on its own. Number 5, Mali. Mali is a landlocked African country most people know almost nothing about, and what little you might know probably sounds made up. Spoiler, it's real. It's home to the ancient city of Timbuktu, which yes, actually exists and sits right at the edge of the Sahara. Visit and you're risking dehydration or heatstroke, so pack sunscreen, water, and some lip balm, because cracked lips make a bad situation even worse. The advisory doesn't hold back. Kidnapping and armed robbery are common, crime spikes around local holidays and events near the capital, Bamako, and unofficial checkpoints, sometimes staffed by corrupt officials, pop up regularly, especially after dark. Armed groups continue planning attacks and kidnappings with minimal warning, often targeting nightclubs, hotels, restaurants, and places of worship, basically anywhere Westerners might gather. Number 4, Iraq. Look, it might sound blunt, but just steer clear of Iraq entirely. Arguably things were calmer during periods of heavier conflict than they are now in some respects. The advisory states plainly, do not travel to Iraq due to terrorism, kidnapping, and active armed conflict. American citizens face a high risk of violence and abduction. Multiple terrorist and insurgent groups remain active, targeting both security forces and civilians, and anti-US. Militias have specifically threatened American citizens and companies operating there. IED attacks continue in numerous regions, including the capital. Number 3, China. Everyone remembers the global health crisis that started making headlines a while back, so I won't rehash the whole thing, you lived it too. During that period, the advisory shifted to do not travel for China, largely due to the outbreak and the resulting chaos, sudden travel restrictions, cancelled flights, and airlines slashing routes in and out of the country with little warning. At the time, anyone already in China was urged to leave by commercial means if possible, or otherwise stay home, avoid crowds, and stock up on essentials in case things got worse. Embassy and consulate resources were also stretched thin, limiting how much help was available to Americans stuck there. Advisories shift as situations evolve, so always check the current status before planning any trip, but at that specific moment, China was a hard no. Number 2, Iran. If you haven't tuned into the news since roughly forever, Iran and the US have had a rocky relationship for decades, touching on everything from politics to everyday freedoms. I actually know someone who grew up there and said schools used to show propaganda films about how corrupt American culture was, and oddly, bowling alleys showed up constantly in those films. He said it had the opposite effect. He and his friends spent their whole childhood wanting to visit the US. Just to go bowling. Tensions have stayed high for a long time, and they spiked further after a major US military operation targeting a top Iranian official. The advisory is direct, do not travel to Iran, citing the serious risk of wrongful detention and arrest of US citizens. Number 1, Haiti. Honestly, it's hard to remember much positive news coming out of Haiti in recent memory. Between political instability, natural disasters like earthquakes and hurricanes, and a government that struggled to maintain control, the country has been through an enormous amount. The advisory doesn't mince words: do not travel to Haiti due to crime, civil unrest, and kidnapping. Armed robbery and carjacking are common, and kidnappings, sometimes carefully planned, sometimes opportunistic, have targeted U.S. citizens directly. Protests, road blockades, and burning tires can appear with no warning and turn violent fast. Local police often lack the resources to respond to serious incidents, and emergency medical response can be minimal to non-existent. And that wraps up today's rundown: 10 places currently sitting at level 4 on the travel advisory list. Hopefully this saves someone from an awkward situation if any of these were on your radar. Advisories change over time, so always check the current listing before booking anything. Drop a comment with your thoughts, hit subscribe if you're new here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care of each other out there.